Hi guys, it's Daniel here again. In this video I want to talk about 8 easy things you can do to boost your intelligence. Now these are things that I've tested on myself and I've seen a proven increase in my intelligence from doing these 8 different things. Now this is separate to the brain training that I normally talk about. So brain training is more of a longer term increase in your intelligence, more of a permanent increase in your intelligence. Whereas these 8 things are kind of more like a short-term boost to your intelligence. Some of them do have longer lasting effects, but most of them are more of a short-term effect, which can still be very useful. Like if you have a big meeting coming up or a big exam or something like that where you need a short-term boost to your intelligence, these things can be quite effective. So I'll just go through them one by one. So the first one is to increase how much you're eating. So to actually just increase your calorie intake on a short-term basis. Of course, if you increase your calorie intake too much, you'll get fat. But on a short-term basis, if you increase it just for a day or something like that, you can actually see a noticeable increase in your intelligence. So for example, if you've got a big exam coming up or a big meeting, something like that, I'd recommend eating about 20% more than you would normally eat in the lead up to that, usually the day before. So for example, if you have a big exam or a big meeting tomorrow, so today you would eat about 20% more than you normally would. So don't pig out, don't like massively overeat, and don't eat junk food. Like still try and eat healthy, but eat about 20% more than you normally would. So you could eat what you normally would plus an extra dessert or something like that. You can do whatever you want for the extra 20%. But basically, you'll see a noticeable boost to your intelligence if you do that. And I think the simple reason for this is because your brain is just very energy intensive. So your brain consumes about 20% of your energy intake. So all the food that you consume, about 20% of that energy goes just to your brain. And your brain's actually very small compared to the total mass of your body. So 20% is a lot of the energy intake that it takes up. So when you consume more energy than you need, it simply just gives your brain a bit of a boost. Now, this is not a permanent boost, but it can be quite effective in the short term. So number 2 on the list is, I've actually mentioned this before, it's choline and phosphatidylserine consumption. So basically making sure you get those micronutrients in your diet. Now, choline is mainly found in eggs, and it can also be found in organ meats and things like that. And phosphatidylserine can also be found in organ meats, but it's also found in really fatty fish like mackerel. So for me personally, I get both of these micronutrients from consuming eggs and mackerel on a daily basis. Now, these two, getting these micronutrients in your diet, most people are deficient in these micronutrients, but getting these in your diet, you'll see a short-term boost in your intelligence when you take these. So you'll see a boost on the same day and the next day if you take these. But you'll also see a longer term boost to your intelligence from taking these as well. So I definitely recommend adding these to your diet. I've talked about it before, but it's definitely worth noting it again. So for me, for example, I eat 4 eggs every single day, and I eat about 90 grams of Atlantic mackerel. So that gets me all of the choline I need, all of the phosphatidylserine that I need, and it also gives me a bonus of getting all the omega-3s that I need on a daily basis. So this not only gives me a short-term boost to my intelligence, it also gives me a longer-term boost to my intelligence. So the third thing on the list is green tea. So I found for myself that whenever I have green tea a couple of times per day, I will see a noticeable boost to my intelligence, like in particular the next day, like the following days. So it's not really something that I see on the same day that I take it. It is a little bit, but it's mainly kind of the next day that I'll see the impact. And I do think you need to take multiple cups of green tea to really see the impact. And I think the reason for this is because green tea is very high in L-theanine. So that's basically a micronutrient that calms you down, so it reduces your stress levels. And of course, stress levels have been proven to hinder your intelligence. So by taking green tea and getting a decent dose of this L-theanine, you're basically just calming yourself down so that your natural intelligence can come out. So I found for myself, when I take at least 2 green teas per day, I see a noticeable boost to my intelligence, kind of in the short term. So it's actually something I've added to my long-term routine because I want to keep seeing this boost from the L-theanine in the green tea. So I try and have 2 or 3 green teas every single day. So that was number 3 on the list. Number 4 on the list is short-term dopamine fasts. Now, I've talked about dopamine fasts before, and they're highly useful to do on a regular basis to maintain kind of longer-term intelligence, a longer-term boost to intelligence. But they can be highly effective in the short term as well to get a short-term boost to intelligence. So what I do is I do short-term dopamine fasts every day, every day or 2 days. I do about a 2-hour dopamine fast. So basically that means just no electronic devices at all. So basically just nothing entertaining for my brain at all for 2 hours, just basically starving my brain of entertainment. And what that does is it calms down your dopamine receptors so that after you've done that fast, then your brain becomes more receptive to more natural forms of dopamine, like being productive and actually achieving things, rather than seeking it from unnatural sources like social media or addictive things like gambling or things like that. So by doing dopamine fasts, you'll see a longer term benefit if you do it on a regular basis, say like a longer dopamine fast every week for maybe 24 hours or longer if you need it. But I've found decent benefits from also these short-term dopamine fasts of just a couple of hours, like every day or every second day, where you just completely starve yourself of artificial dopamine. So no looking at your phone, your laptop, no looking at the TV, like no electronic devices at all, and not even anything stimulating like in the real world either. Like really try and give yourself very limited stimulation. What I like to do when I'm doing it is to journal at the same time, because it's actually a really good time to really come up with creative ideas when you're not distracted by all these other things going on around, and when you're not when things aren't stealing your attention, basically. Like your phone and your laptop and electronic devices, they kind of steal your attention a lot of the time. So when your attention isn't being stolen from you, then you can actually just naturally use it and be very creative in those times. So I kind of use it as like a double up. So I get my creative thinking done, and it's very good to brainstorm during that time. But really the main reason I'm doing it is for the boost to intelligence, because once you've done that, you have calmed down basically the emotional control over your prefrontal cortex. So by starving your dopamine receptors, their control over your brain reduces, because when you get into a dopamine addicted state, basically it takes over your whole brain, and your whole brain starts just seeking more and more of whatever is giving it dopamine. For example, more and more gambling or more social media scrolling and scrolling. These things that give it more and more dopamine, it takes over your entire brain so that you're just seeking more and more of that. So by calming down those dopamine receptors so that they're back to more of a normal level, then it just frees up so much more of your brain, because then the dopamine receptors don't need to hijack the rest of your brain in order to get their dopamine, because the amount of dopamine they need is less. It's less dopamine they need to get the same hit. So it frees up the rest of your brain to focus on other things, and that is why you get a boost to your intelligence in the short term and the longer term from doing dopamine fasts. So that was number 4 on the list. Number 5 is kind of similar. It's basically just getting yourself as relaxed as you can. So the way to measure this is with your resting heart rate and with your HRV. So for me, I wear an Oura ring, which I can show here, and also a Fitbit. So I can track my resting heart rate and my HRV in multiple ways every single day. And basically you can get a longer term boost to your intelligence by reducing your resting heart rate as much as you can. Basically you do that by getting as fit as you can. And the same thing with your HRV, by increasing your HRV as much as you can. That will boost your intelligence long term. But you can also get the same effect in the shorter term as well. So in the short term, if your heart rate is elevated, even a little bit from stress, for example, and if your HRV is lowered a little bit from stress, you can actually improve that quite a lot in just 5 minutes. In 5 minutes of focused breathing and forcing yourself to relax, you can actually really see a huge drop in your resting heart rate and a huge increase in your HRV. And that will give you a significant boost to your intelligence, because those two are just highly correlated with intelligence. I've seen this for myself. I've been tracking my own resting heart rate data overnight and throughout the day, and my HRV overnight and throughout the day. I've been tracking it for years, and I've been matching it against my intelligence and my brain training scores, and I can see that there's a huge correlation between how relaxed I am and my intelligence, and it's a longer term effect and a shorter term effect. So that was number 5 on the list. Number 6, I think it's kind of similar to number 5, but it's simply spending time with friends and family. So I found for myself, like, I don't spend that much time with friends and family, but when I do, the same day and the next day, I have a noticeable boost to my intelligence. I think the reason for this is the same as number 5. I think it just simply relaxes you. It lowers your resting heart rate. It increases your HRV. There might be other reasons why it works. I think that's the main reason why it works. But yeah, I've noticed for me, there's a significant boost to my intelligence when I spend more time with friends and family than I have previously, than I have recently. So yeah, just give that a try. If you're someone who doesn't spend that much time with friends and family, try spending a little bit more time and just see how you feel the same day and the next day. I think you'll find a boost to your intelligence from that as well. The next one, number 7, this might not be the case for everyone, but it is for me, and that is listening to my favorite music. So I've got lots of different kinds of music that I like. My main one is kind of new metal, but I also like kind of rap sometimes as well, and all different types of music I like. But listening to my favorite music and like really listening to it, like not just having it on in the background, like actually carving out time to listen to it, like maybe just lying down on the couch and just listening for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or something like that, you'll actually get a decent boost to your intelligence from doing this. I think the reason for this is similar to the dopamine fast. I think the reason why it works is because it calms down the emotions that might be holding back your intelligence. So I think what happens to most people is they get a build-up of emotions. When they just go through their normal day-to-day life, they get a build-up of emotions. I get that. I think everyone gets that. And what that does is, basically emotions come from the more primitive part of your brain, which is the majority of your brain. The majority of your brain is the same as a chimpanzee's. The only part that's different between us and a chimpanzee is the front part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex. That's the only part that is different. The rest of our brain is exactly the same as a chimpanzee's. And I think the emotional part of our brain comes from the more primitive part of our brain. And when that builds up, when the emotions build up, it can completely hijack the prefrontal cortex. It can completely hijack your higher level reasoning ability. It can completely hijack your intelligence. So you really need to make sure that these things don't build up too far. Like a small amount of emotions and a small is fine. Like you won't really see much of an effect. But if you're not on top of it, if you're not kind of actively trying to reduce emotional buildup on a regular basis, you will find that it does start to affect your intelligence, and you'll actually just find it weighs on you more and more and more, and you won't really realize it. By the time you realize that you have too much emotional buildup, the intelligence effect would already have been massive. Like the drop in intelligence would already have been massive. So you kind of need to be proactive about reducing emotional buildup, like even a small amount of emotional buildup, because the amount of emotional buildup that you would notice before you actually take action, the amount that your intelligence would have dropped by that point is too much. Like you really need to be proactive about it. So basically, you need to try and deal with emotional buildup before you even notice that you've got an emotional buildup. Because you do already have it there, even if you don't really feel it, if you don't really think you have an emotional buildup, I guarantee that you do. So you really need to be proactive. And I think listening to music is a really good way to just release some of that built up emotion. Well, at least for me, it is anyway. And number 8 on the list is going for very long walks. Now, by very long, I mean like very long. I mean like 2-hour long walks. So I've experimented with all different lengths of walks, and I found that shorter walks, even up to an hour, you'll see maybe a very small boost to intelligence from that, because you'd be a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more of a clear head. But you'll see a really huge, significant boost to your intelligence when you get to about the 2 hour mark. When you do 2 hours of walking, pretty much all together, like maybe you don't have to do 2 hours like in one stretch. Maybe you could do 1 hour and then a little bit of a break and then another hour. But pretty much 2 hours, almost back to back, you'll see a huge boost to your intelligence. I'm not really sure where that comes from. I think part of it is basically just clearing your mind. When you're walking, you can just clear through a lot of thoughts. But I think part of it is a boost to your BDNF levels as well. So I think they've found that when you do kind of longer term cardio like that, you can actually get a boost to your brain's BDNF levels, which is brain derived neurotropic factor, which is basically fertilizer for your brain. So I think when you get to about a 2 hour level of walking in a single day, in a short period of time, then you get that boost to your BDNF levels, and you actually will see a decent increase in your intelligence in the short term. And it can actually last up to a couple of days, I found. So that's just another factor to keep in mind. So yeah, these are 8 things you can do to boost your intelligence in the short term. Some of them also have a longer term impact. But yeah, you can experiment with these if you need a short-term boost to your intelligence, or if you want to try and get more of a longer-term boost to your intelligence. Give these things a try and let me know how you go with them. And yeah, if you like this content, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And yeah, I'll keep you guys updated with anything else I'm thinking about. Cheers, guys.